December 18, 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The captured American weapons lay scattered across the snow. Standard procedure: collect intelligence, distribute usable equipment, destroy the rest. But when Waffenmeister Hans Dietrich picked up the rifle marked, U.S. rifle, caliber .30, M1, something made him pause. What he discovered in the next hour would challenge everything the Wehrmacht believed about German weapons superiority. The realization came slowly, detail by detail. This wasn't another bolt-action rifle. This was something fundamentally different. Semi-automatic. Gas-operated. Self-loading. 8 rounds fired as fast as the trigger could be pulled. Germany had semi-automatic rifles too. The Gur 41 and later the Gur 43. Sophisticated weapons, precision-engineered. But rare. So rare that most Wehrmacht soldiers had never seen one, let alone carried one. Dietrich had been a Waffenmeister since 1940. He'd maintained tens of thousands of weapons. The Carabiner 98K bolt-action rifle was his constant companion. Reliable, accurate, beautifully crafted. Each one required skilled gunsmiths to produce. Each one was a masterwork of German engineering. 5 rounds per magazine, manual bolt operation between shots. A trained soldier could fire perhaps 15 aimed rounds per minute. He examined the M1 Garand more closely. The action was elegant in its simplicity. A rotating bolt locked into the receiver. Gas tapped from the barrel drove an operating rod. Simple. Robust. Designed for mass production. He field stripped it with practiced efficiency. What he found disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. Every component was machined for interchangeability. Tolerances were loose enough for rapid manufacturing but tight enough for reliability. No hand fitting required. A factory worker with minimal training could assemble this weapon from bins of parts. Any M1 part would fit any other M1. This wasn't how German weapons worked. German rifles required skilled fitting, careful adjustment, craftsman-level expertise. The trigger group came out as a single assembly. Remove one pin, the entire mechanism lifted free. Cleaning took minutes instead of the careful disassembly German rifles required. An American soldier with basic training could maintain this weapon under combat conditions. A German soldier needed an armorer for anything beyond surface cleaning. Dietrich looked at the pile of captured M1s 37 rifles from a single overrun position. He'd never seen 37 Gur 43s in one place. He'd never seen 37 of any semi-automatic German rifle. But here were 36 American semi-automatics, issued to ordinary infantry. Not elite units. Not special forces. Regular soldiers. He called over his assistant, Gefreiter Müller. Strip one of these. Tell me what you find. Müller was young, drafted in 1943, trained hastily as German manpower shortages deepened. He approached the M1 cautiously. 15 minutes later, he'd field stripped it completely and reassembled it. Herr Waffenmeister, this is, remarkably simple. Simpler than our Kar 98K, certainly simpler than the Gur 43. Dietrich nodded. That was the problem. German semi-automatic rifles were sophisticated machines requiring expert maintenance. The Gur 41 had been notoriously finicky. The Gur 43 improved it but still demanded careful handling. Both required specialized knowledge to keep functioning. This American rifle was designed assuming the soldier maintaining it might be a farm boy who'd never seen a firearm before basic training. How many rounds does it hold? Müller asked. 8 in an en-bloc clip. Automatic ejection when empty. Müller's eyes widened. The Kar 98K held 5 rounds in an integral magazine, loaded from stripper clips. Slow. Manual. The M1 held 8 in a clip that ejected automatically with a distinctive ping when empty. Reload time, seconds. Dietrich had read intelligence reports. American production of M1 rifles had begun in 1936. By 1943, they were standard issue for virtually all U.S. infantry. Millions produced. Millions. Germany had attempted semi-automatic rifle programs for years. The Gur 41 entered production in 1941. By 1944, perhaps 70,000 total had been manufactured. The Gur 43 improved the design, but production remained limited. Perhaps 400,000 total by war's end, if that. Meanwhile, America had produced over 4 million M1 Garands by 1945. 4 million semi-automatic rifles in the hands of regular infantry. The mathematics were devastating. A German infantry squad of 10 men carried Kar 98K bolt actions. Combined fire rate, perhaps 150 aimed rounds per minute. An American squad of 12 men carried M1 Garands. Combined fire rate, over 500 rounds per minute. More than triple the firepower from similar-sized units. The Americans hadn't just designed a better rifle. They'd designed a rifle that could be manufactured by the millions, maintained by minimally trained soldiers, and issued universally. This was the philosophy gap Wehrmacht intelligence kept reporting. American weapons weren't necessarily more sophisticated than German equivalents. They were designed for total war production. Dietrich examined the barrel. Chrome-lined. Longer service life, easier cleaning. German barrels required careful maintenance to prevent corrosion. The M1's chrome lining gave it inherent resistance. Another simplification. Another reduction in maintenance burden. The stock was walnut, well-fitted but not hand-shaped like German rifle stocks. Adequate. Functional. Producible quickly. The sight system was simple. Aperture rear sight, blade front. Adjustable for windage and elevation but not requiring constant tweaking. German iron sights were precision instruments. Beautiful. Complex. The M1 sights were crude by comparison but effective within the rifle's combat range. Americans had decided that adequate performance delivered quickly mattered more than optimal performance delivered slowly. His unit's commanding officer approached. Dietrich, can we use these rifles? Yes, Herr Hauptmann. They're reliable, simple to maintain, and significantly increase firepower. Many of our men would prefer them to the Kar 98K. The officer frowned. German weapons are the finest in the world. Dietrich chose his words carefully. German weapons are excellently crafted. But these American rifles are designed differently. Not for perfection, but for mass production and field reliability. The officer walked away without comment. Dietrich understood. Admitting American manufacturing superiority challenged core beliefs about German technical supremacy. But the evidence was undeniable. The Wehrmacht was fighting a materially superior enemy. Not superior in craftsmanship necessarily, but superior in capacity. Superior in the ability to equip millions of soldiers with effective weapons. Word spread through the division. American rifles were available for those who wanted them. Soldiers competed for captured M1s. After years of bolt-action rifles, the semi-automatic's firepower was intoxicating. Veterans who'd fought since Poland preferred captured Garands to issued Kar 98Ks. This spoke volumes. Dietrich spent the evening examining other captured American weapons. A Thompson submachine gun, heavy but reliable. A Browning automatic rifle, crude but effective squad support weapon. A Colt 1911 pistol, simple and robust. Every weapon shared common characteristics, designed for production, tolerant of rough handling, maintainable by non-specialists. He compared them mentally to German equivalents. The MP-40 submachine gun was excellent but production was limited. The MG-42 machine gun was arguably the finest automatic weapon in the world, but it required skilled operators and careful maintenance. The P-38 pistol was sophisticated but complex. Every German weapon prioritized performance and craftsmanship. Every American weapon prioritized producibility and reliability. That night, Dietrich wrote a detailed report for Wehrmacht Ordnance Command. He documented the M1 specifications, maintenance requirements, production advantages. The report joined thousands of similar assessments from every front. German technical intelligence knew exactly what they faced. The problem wasn't ignorance. It was inability to respond. Germany lacked the industrial capacity to match American arms production, even if German designers copied American methods exactly. The numbers told the story. Springfield Armory and Winchester produced M1 Garands at a combined rate exceeding 20,000 per week by 1943. Germany's entire GUR 43 production for all of 1944 was roughly 150,000 rifles total. America produced that many M1s every 2 months. The disparity wasn't just quantitative. It revealed fundamental differences in industrial philosophy. American factories were designed for mass production from the ground up. Assembly lines, interchangeable parts, semi-skilled labor, simplified processes. German factories relied on skilled craftsmen, precision machining, hand-fitting, quality over quantity. In peacetime, German methods produced superior products. In total war, American methods produced overwhelming abundance. The Battle of the Bulge ground on. Germany's last offensive in the West. Dietrich's unit was surrounded by American forces within a week. Ammunition ran low. Fuel vanished. Rations dwindled. On December 26, they surrendered. Nearly 2,000 men, hands raised, weapons stacked. Dietrich placed his Kar 98K on the pile. Next to it, an American soldier tossed an M1 Garand carelessly onto a truck. To the American, it was replaceable. Abundant. Disposable even. Processing through POW camps, Dietrich witnessed American logistics firsthand. Mountains of supplies. Warehouses filled with weapons, ammunition, vehicles, food, clothing. Everything in quantities that seemed impossible. A single supply depot contained more M1 rifles than his entire division had carried weapons of all types. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, Dietrich volunteered for the armory detail. American camp commanders welcomed skilled labor. For the next 18 months, he maintained weapons for U.S. Army training units. The experience was educational. American armorers approached weapon maintenance with direct practicality. When something broke, they replaced it from abundant spare parts. When a weapon proved unrepairable, they set it aside and requisitioned another. No careful rebuilding of broken components. No hand-fitting of replacement parts. Just swap and continue. The parts room held thousands of components. Gas cylinders, operating rods, triggers, stocks, barrels. Everything standardized, everything interchangeable. An armorer could rebuild an M1 from bins of parts in under an hour. Dietrich had spent days carefully fitting replacement parts to individual German rifles. The American system eliminated craftsmanship from maintenance. Any competent worker could keep weapons operational. He befriended an American sergeant who'd worked for Winchester before the war. "We make about 500 Garands per day at Winchester," the sergeant explained casually. "Springfield makes even more. Between the two plants, probably 15,000 rifles per week, maybe 20,000 at peak." Dietrich did the arithmetic silently. That was more rifles in 1 week than Germany produced GUR 43s in 6 months. How is such production possible? Design for manufacturability. Mr. Garand spent years perfecting the design for mass production. Every part can be made quickly by semi-skilled workers using standard machines. No hand-fitting, no custom work, no craftsman required. Just operators running machines from blueprints. This was the fundamental lesson. John Garand had designed the M1 not just as a weapon but as a manufacturing system. He'd considered production requirements from the beginning. German designers created excellent weapons, then struggled to produce them in quantity. American designers created adequate weapons optimized for mass production. In total war, the American approach proved vastly more effective. The sergeant continued. Same thing with every weapon we make. The Colt 1911 pistol uses parts from multiple manufacturers, all interchangeable. The Thompson submachine gun was redesigned twice to simplify production. The M1 carbine was designed from scratch to be the simplest semi-automatic rifle possible. Everything's about getting weapons to soldiers fast. Dietrich thought about the German weapons development process. Years of refinement, testing, perfection. The Gur 43 had gone through multiple iterations seeking optimal performance. Each improvement required retooling factories, retraining workers, adjusting processes. The Americans accepted adequate performance and focused on delivery. 5 million adequate rifles beat 100,000 perfect rifles. News of Germany's surrender reached Camp Shelby in May 1945. The war in Europe was over. Dietrich felt no surprise. He'd seen American capacity firsthand. Germany had challenged an enemy with 10 times its industrial output. The outcome had never been in doubt, only the timeline. Repatriation began in 1946. Dietrich arrived in Hamburg in February, processed through British control, released. The city was rubble. Destroyed by the same industrial might that produced endless M1 Garands and B-17 bombers and Sherman tanks. He found work with the British occupation forces maintaining their weapons. The British Lee Enfield was a bolt action like the Kar 98K, but faster firing due to its rear-locking bolt. Still, only 10 rounds magazine capacity. The British hadn't fully motorized either. They'd relied heavily on American production for vehicles and support weapons. The lesson was clear, only America had possessed sufficient industrial capacity to fully equip modern armies. By 1948, Dietrich was supervising a workforce repairing weapons for the emerging West German police forces. Germany was forbidden a military by occupation terms, but police needed arms. He trained young Germans in weapon maintenance, teaching techniques learned in American camps. Simplification. Standardization. Interchangeability. These weren't traditional German gunsmithing principles, but they worked for maintaining large inventories with limited skilled labor. The Marshall Plan poured American aid into West Germany. Factories rebuilt. Economy recovered. By the early 1950s, West Germany was rearming under NATO agreements. Dietrich consulted on weapon selection for the new Bundeswehr. The debate centered on rifle choice. Some favored traditional German designs. Others wanted modern approaches. He advocated for a synthesis, German precision engineering applied to American mass production philosophy. The result was the G3 battle rifle, adopted in 1959. Designed by former Mauser engineers who'd studied Allied weapons extensively. The G3 combined German accuracy with simplified production methods. Roller-delayed blowback action, stamped steel construction, designed for interchangeable parts. It could be manufactured quickly in large quantities while maintaining German standards of performance. The rifle embodied lessons learned from examining captured M1 Garands in the snow of the Ardennes 15 years earlier. West Germany's arms industry rebuilt on hybrid principles. Heckler and Koch combined German engineering with manufacturing efficiency. Walther adapted American production techniques. Mauser modernized. The result was an export powerhouse. By the 1970s, West German weapons equipped armies worldwide. The G3 rifle alone served in over 50 nations. German precision had been preserved. German craftsmanship continued. But now it was paired with production efficiency learned from former enemies. In 1974, Dietrich attended a weapons collector's show in Munich. A dealer displayed a pristine M1 Garand. He picked it up, muscle memory from decades earlier taking over. The balance felt familiar. He field stripped it smoothly, examined components, reassembled it. 30 years had passed since December 1944. The rifle hadn't changed. But everything it represented had transformed. A young German approached, perhaps 25. You know American weapons? I maintained them during the war. And afterward. Were they better than ours? Dietrich considered carefully. They were different. German weapons were more precisely made. But American weapons were designed for mass production and field conditions. In total war, that proved more important than craftsmanship. We learned that lesson painfully. The young man nodded. I read that Germany produced maybe 400,000 Gur 43s. America made over 4 million M1 Garands. Exactly. That ratio told you everything about why we lost. Not because our soldiers lacked skill or courage. Because our factories couldn't match American production. We designed weapons as engineering challenges. Americans designed weapons as manufacturing problems. Their approach won. Dietrich placed the M1 back on the table. The dealer quoted a price, 800 Deutsche Marks. Excellent condition. Matching numbers. Springfield Armory, 1943 manufacture. He almost bought it. A weapon he'd examined in Belgian snow 3 decades ago, now a collectible in peaceful Germany. But he didn't need it. The lessons it taught were already learned, already applied, already rebuilt into a prosperous nation. The economic miracle of the 1950s and 60s owed much to such lessons. West Germany had studied Allied weapons, vehicles, aircraft, electronics. German engineers traveled to America, learning production methods firsthand. American corporations invested in German factories, sharing techniques. The synthesis created an industrial powerhouse combining German quality with American efficiency. Heckler & Koch's success demonstrated this perfectly. Founded by former Mauser engineers in 1949, the company designed weapons using roller-delayed blowback systems developed from late-war German prototypes. But production methods came from American influence: stamped components, modular design, interchangeable parts, simplified maintenance. The result was weapons that could be manufactured economically while maintaining performance standards. The G3 rifle, MP5 submachine gun, and later systems equipped militaries and police forces globally. By 1980, West Germany exported more small arms than any European nation except Belgium. The industry that had struggled to produce 400,000 semi-automatic rifles during the war now manufactured millions of weapons annually. The transformation traced directly to lessons learned in defeat. German engineers had admitted that American methods worked better for mass production, then spent decades perfecting the synthesis of both approaches. Dietrich retired in 1982 after 42 years working with weapons. He'd started as a Wehrmacht armorer in 1940, served through the war, worked for occupation forces, helped rebuild German arms industry, consulted for Bundeswehr. 42 years maintaining, studying, understanding weapons. The journey had taught him truths about more than firearms. He'd learned about industrial philosophy, national hubris, the value of adaptation. The reunions began in the mid-1980s. Former members of his division gathered annually. Fewer each year as veterans aged. At the 1989 reunion, someone mentioned that the Wehrtechnische Studiensammlung Military Museum in Koblenz had acquired a large American weapons collection. Most wanted to visit. They stood in front of the display case containing an M1 Garand. 8 elderly men, survivors of battles 50 years past. Dietrich stepped closer, reading the placard. U.S. rifle, caliber .30, M1. Designed by John C. Garand. Production, 1936 to 1957. Total manufactured, approximately 5.4 million. Standard U.S. infantry rifle, World War II and Korea. 5.4 million. He'd known the number intellectually, but seeing it stated plainly still carried impact. One of his companions, a former infantryman, spoke quietly. I captured one at Mortain in 1944. Used it until I surrendered. Never jammed once. Fired maybe 500 rounds through it. Never cleaned it properly, didn't really know how. It just kept working. Another veteran added, I remember examining one in Belgium, late 44. Couldn't believe how simple it was. Then I realized that simplicity was the genius. We'd overcomplicated our weapons. Made them too difficult to produce, too difficult to maintain. The Americans made them simple enough that anyone could use and maintain them. Dietrich nodded. That was exactly the lesson. We confused sophistication with effectiveness. German weapons were beautifully made. American weapons were effectively made. In peacetime, beautiful craftsmanship matters. In wartime, effectiveness and abundance matter. They understood that. We didn't, not until too late. They stood in silence. The museum display represented more than a historical artifact. For these veterans, it symbolized the industrial capacity that had defeated them, the manufacturing philosophy they'd failed to match, the abundance that had overwhelmed scarcity. But it also represented the knowledge that rebuilt their nation. The humility to learn from victors. The wisdom to adapt rather than cling to failed approaches. One veteran finally spoke. We never had weapons like this. Not in the numbers, not with the reliability, not designed the same way. We built for perfection. They built for production. The others murmured agreement. This was consensus earned through experience, observation, and decades of reflection. They moved on to other exhibits. Panzerfausts, MG-42s, captured German weapons displayed alongside Allied equivalents. The museum told the technological story of the war through artifacts. For these veterans, each artifact carried memories. Each weapon represented choices made, philosophies applied, consequences suffered. The Kar 98K on display looked pristine. Beautifully crafted, precision made. Dietrich had maintained thousands during the war. Excellent rifles. But bolt action in an era when the enemy fielded semi-automatics as standard. Germany had entered World War II with essentially the same infantry rifle used in World War I. America had completely revolutionized its infantry weapons between wars. That choice determined much about the conflict's outcome. Leaving the museum, Dietrich reflected on what the exhibits represented. Germany had possessed skilled engineers, capable designers, advanced concepts. But it had lacked the industrial capacity and manufacturing philosophy necessary to translate concepts into battlefield dominance. The Wehrmacht had fielded some excellent weapons in limited numbers, the MG-42 machine gun, the Panzerfaust anti-tank weapon, the STG-44 assault rifle. But, limited numbers, was the operative phrase. America fielded adequate weapons in unlimited numbers. Adequacy multiplied by abundance defeated excellence constrained by scarcity. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 reunified Germany. The Bundeswehr absorbed East German military equipment. Dietrich, though retired, consulted on integrating weapon systems. East Germany had used Soviet designs, AK-47 variants, SVD rifles, PKM machine guns. Soviet weapons embodied similar philosophy to American designs, simple, robust, producible in vast quantities. The Soviets had learned the same lessons Germany had learned, but applied them successfully. By the 1990s, Dietrich was in his 70s. His health declined. But his mind remained sharp. He watched as Heckler & Koch developed the G36 rifle to replace the G3. The G36 used polymer construction, reducing weight and cost. Modular design allowed rapid configuration changes. Every component was designed for manufacturability. The rifle embodied the complete synthesis of German precision with mass production philosophy. It would never have been possible without lessons learned from examining captured M1 Garands 50 years earlier. In 1998, German public television produced a documentary series on German veterans' perspectives. They interviewed Dietrich about his experiences as a Wehrmacht armorer. He spoke carefully, aware that discussing German military history remained sensitive decades after the war. I maintained weapons for 4 years of combat, he explained to the camera. I saw the best German engineering had to offer. But I also saw American weapons captured from the enemy. The contrast was instructive. We built weapons as craftsmen. Americans built weapons as industrialists. Both approaches have merit, but in total war, industrial capacity matters most. The interviewer asked, "Do you believe American weapons were superior?" Dietrich paused. Not superior in every technical specification, but superior in design philosophy for modern war. The M1 Garand wasn't more accurate than the Kar 98K. But it fired semi-automatically, held more rounds, required less training to maintain, and was produced by the millions. Those factors mattered more than precision craftsmanship. American designers understood that adequacy delivered abundantly beats perfection delivered sparingly. He continued, Germany's mistake wasn't in engineering. Our weapons were excellent. Our mistake was in manufacturing philosophy. We tried to maintain peacetime production standards during total war. We required skilled labor when labor was scarce. We demanded precision when speed mattered more. Americans accepted slightly lower quality in exchange for dramatically higher quantity. That pragmatism won the war. The documentary aired in 1999. Dietrich received letters from viewers, mostly positive. Young Germans appreciated honest assessment of historical failures. Veterans of other nations wrote expressing respect for candid analysis. One letter came from an American veteran who'd carried an M1 Garand through France and Germany. I always wondered what German soldiers thought of our weapons. Thank you for the honest answer. The M1 wasn't perfect, but it was good enough, and we had millions. That mattered most. Dietrich replied to many letters. The correspondence revealed common themes: respect for enemy competence, recognition of material disparities, understanding that individual courage couldn't overcome systemic disadvantages. Veterans on both sides acknowledged these truths decades after passions had cooled. In December 2004, Dietrich turned 80. His family organized a small celebration. His grandson, studying engineering at Technical University of Munich, asked about his wartime experiences. Dietrich had always been circumspect, but age had made him more willing to share. I learned the most important lessons not from German weapons but from studying American ones, he told his grandson. I learned that clever design means considering manufacturing from the beginning. That standardization enables mass production. That simplicity facilitates maintenance. That abundance compensates for individual unit limitations. These lessons rebuilt Germany after the war. Companies like Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, and Heckler & Koch succeeded by combining German quality with American production methods. His grandson listened intently. So examining captured American weapons changed your thinking? Completely. Before, I believed German craftsmanship was inherently superior. After, I understood that superiority depends on context. In peacetime, producing small quantities of excellent products makes sense. In wartime, producing large quantities of adequate products matters more. Americans grasped this instinctively. We learned it through defeat. But we learned it thoroughly and applied it successfully afterward. Dietrich passed away in 2007 at age 82. His obituary in the local newspaper noted his wartime service and post-war contributions to German arms industry. The family donated his papers to the Bundesarchiv military archives. Among them, his 1944 technical report on captured M1 Garand rifles, notes from American POW camp armory work, consulting documents from Bundeswehr establishment, correspondence with Heckler & Koch engineers. The papers documented a personal journey paralleling Germany's national transformation. The lesson of the M1 Garand extended beyond weapons. It represented a broader truth about industrial competition, national capacity, design philosophy. Germany had entered World War II confident in technological superiority. It ended the war defeated by enemies with overwhelming material capacity. That defeat forced honest assessment of what had gone wrong. The answer wasn't lack of courage or tactical skill. It was industrial philosophy unsuited to total war. American weapons weren't individually superior to German equivalents in most technical specifications. But they were superior in design for production, ease of maintenance, and above all, quantity. The M1 Garand symbolized this approach perfectly, a semi-automatic rifle simple enough for rapid mass production, robust enough for minimal maintenance, effective enough for combat, and produced in millions. German semi-automatic rifle programs couldn't match any of those criteria simultaneously. The Wehrmacht had carried bolt-action rifles into World War II despite semi-automatic technology existing. Why? Because German ordnance authorities prioritized precision and craftsmanship over mass production. The Kar 98K was easier to manufacture traditionally than developing new semi-automatic production lines. This conservatism proved disastrous when facing enemies who'd fully modernized infantry weapons. By contrast, America had adopted the M1 Garand before war began. Springfield Armory worked for years perfecting mass production techniques. When war started, factories rapidly expanded production, reaching thousands of rifles per day. This preparation reflected understanding that future war would require equipping millions of soldiers with modern weapons. Germany never achieved this understanding until too late. The post-war arms industry in West Germany internalized these lessons completely. Every weapon system developed after 1950 prioritized producibility alongside performance. The G3 rifle used stamped construction rather than machined components where possible. The MG3 machine gun simplified the MG42's design for easier manufacturing. The P1 pistol updated the P38 with production efficiency improvements. German weapons remained high quality, but now they could also be produced in large quantities at reasonable cost. This synthesis made West Germany a major arms exporter. Countries worldwide purchased German weapons for their combination of quality and availability. The success validated the hybrid approach, German engineering standards applied with American mass production methodology. The weapons industry became a significant economic sector, employing thousands and generating substantial export revenue. The legacy of that December day in 1944 when Hans Dietrich examined a captured M1 Garand extended far beyond one armorer's education. It represented a generation of German engineers and industrialists who learned from defeat, adapted foreign methods, and rebuilt their nation more successfully than the pre-war system had operated. The humility to admit that enemies had done something better. The wisdom to study and learn rather than cling to failed approaches. The skill to synthesize the best of both traditions. Modern Germany's economic success traces partly to such lessons. The manufacturing sector combines precision with efficiency. Exports include both mass-market products and premium goods. Companies compete globally by offering quality at competitive prices. This wouldn't have been possible without the philosophical shift from pure craftsmanship to industrial pragmatism. The M1 Garand itself was retired from U.S. service in the 1960s, replaced by the M14 and later M16. But its influence persisted. The principles John Garand embedded in its design, interchangeable parts, simplified maintenance, design for production, became standard for all modern weapons. Every military rifle since owes something to the M1's pioneering approach. German museums now display M1 Garands alongside Wehrmacht weapons, representing both sides of history honestly. Educational placards explain technical specifications without nationalistic bias. Young Germans learn their history including both achievements and failures. This honesty serves the nation better than pre-war mythology ever did. The veterans who examined captured American weapons during the war have nearly all passed. Their direct testimony is gone. But their insights survive in archives, in museum displays, in the hybrid design philosophy that rebuilt Germany. They learned that adequacy multiplied by abundance defeats perfection constrained by scarcity. That industrial capacity matters more than individual unit quality. That designing for production matters as much as designing for performance. These were hard lessons, learned through defeat. But Germany proved an excellent student. The nation that had confused sophistication with effectiveness learned to value functional pragmatism. The armorers who admitted they'd never had weapons like the M1 Garand became the consultants who ensured the next generation would have weapons that combined the best of both traditions. That admission of inadequacy became the foundation of adequacy, then excellence. In December 1944, examining a captured rifle in the Ardennes snow, Waffenmeister Hans Dietrich began a journey of discovery that influenced a generation. He'd set out to assess an enemy weapon. He ended up understanding modern industrial warfare. The armorer who admitted American weapons embodied better design philosophy for mass production became a man who helped rebuild German industry on exactly that philosophy. That admission of defeat became the foundation of prosperity. The M1 Garand taught its most valuable lesson not in what it could do on the battlefield, but in what it represented about industrial capacity, design philosophy, and the courage to learn from those who approach problems differently. That lesson, painful in its acquisition, rebuilt a nation and shaped the modern world.